everyone, and welcome to Celebrating Black Voices in ICF Tennessee Leadership. We're super excited for you to be with us today because this is our very first live panel discussion. Right now, we're live on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube. It's something we've never been able to do before, and so we are just really excited that you could be with us. I can see that people are joining from all over. It's a beautiful thing. So thank you everyone for joining us. We have so much to cover today. I just really want to jump right in and get us started. What I want to share with you is if you have a question for one of our panelists, just drop that into the chat feature on the screen and we will answer questions as we go. And then we'll also save some time to answer questions at the end. Before I introduce the panelists today though, and I want to lead us into this important discussion with a quote from Maya Angelou. Maya says that courage is the most important of all the virtues because without courage, you can't practice any other virtue consistently. You can practice any virtue erratically, but nothing consistently without courage. And I just want to say that it takes courage and action to challenge the status quo. And in order for us to really make some meaningful changes in ourselves and in the environments in which we work, we've got to call out respectfully the times we see bias, not just expect our companies or our organizations to sort of handle these situations. Because after all, bias, whether it's implicit or not, is an exclusion can actually manifest anywhere within our organizations or anytime we bring together a group of people. So as we continue to cultivate a culture here at ICF Tennessee of diversity, inclusion, and belonging, it's really the responsibility of each of us. So I'm grateful for the words of Maya, and I'm also really grateful to be able to introduce to you our courageous panelists. So these women are Black leaders in ICF Tennessee leadership, and it is my privilege first to introduce Mildred Walters. Mildred is the director of Pathway Women's Business Center, and Mildred served as the ICF president in 2014. Mildred, thanks so much for being with us today.
You're welcome.
Next on the panel is Edie Nash. Edie is an executive coach and founder of E. Nash Associates based in Nashville, and Edie served as our 2013 ICF Tennessee president. Welcome, Edie.
Thank you.
Next is Karen Nash. Karen is a manager of learning and development for the Ingram Content Group and the founding coach of Graphic Transformations. Karen served as our ICF Tennessee president in 2021. Welcome, Karen. And Anna Walker. Anna Walker is a life and transition coach, and she's also the founder of the Total You coaching and consulting firm. Anna will be the incoming president in 2023. And finally, myself, I'm Brenda Baird. I'm an executive leadership coach, and I'm the current president of the chapter. So it is my honor to bring to you these past presidents and incoming presidents of ICF Tennessee. So we're going to jump right in with our first question. I hope that this can be a little more conversational-like. So each question doesn't necessarily have to be answered by every panelist, with the exception of this very first question that I want to ask. And then I'll call on each of you to answer that. And that question is, tell us about your coaching journey and how it is that you've landed to where you are today. So I'd like to start this off with Edie. Edie, would you kick us off with answering and telling us about your coaching journey?
Sure. I was in corporate for about 14 years, and I left corporate back in 2001. I can't believe it's been so long. I founded my company in 2001. I was vice president of learning and development for a national retailer. And my work was all about management development and leadership development. And that was the training that I did. That training kept me on the road most of the time. Mm-hmm. And so about 5 years in, I started to think about the advice that my mentor, Pat White, had given me, that said, maybe you ought to think about coaching. You could get a chance to be home more. And so in 2007, I began my coach training. My initial plans were that I would only do coaching. And I quickly discovered that that didn't work back in 2007 when most of my training clients had no idea what coaching even was. And so I began to do a blend of coaching and training. I work with leaders and leadership teams. Over the years, I have felt myself moving in this direction, and this is what feels good to me. I have corporate clients, a lot. I have some Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 clients. And I also have some very small organizations that are clients. I've been a member of ICF Tennessee since 2007. And so it's been a joy to watch this chapter grow. I am now, I think, where I will be until the end, and that is coaching leaders and leadership teams to help them create environments where people feel valued and respected and who are supported to do their very best work.
Thank you, Edie. It's an inspiring message for all of us. Next, Mildred, tell us about your coaching journey and what has you where you are today.
Well, like Edie, my coaching journey began in 2007 with a 15-day Coach U Fast Track course in Portland, Oregon. My initial goal was to gain the skills to add value to the clients that we had in the Nashville Business Incubation Center, where I was executive director at the time. In 2014, I joined a group that was led by Pat White to prepare for the PCC. I received the credential by the end of that year. A little while later, I think in 2012, I left the Nashville Business Incubation Center to establish a private coaching practice. But I found that the clients that needed my services the most, the small business owners who had a problem to solve, couldn't afford my services. So I began to look for federal grants that could help support the business. And in doing so, I discovered that Pathway Lending was about to establish a women's business center. So I applied for the job of being the director of Pathway Lending. And I did start working there in 2015, but before the year ended, I discovered that I had ovarian cancer. So I retired, and I have been retired since then.
Oh, wow. What a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Karen, tell us about your coaching journey and where it's landed you today. I think you might be muted.
Great. So my field was organization development, and I did OD work as a contractor with lots of consultants. And I also did a lot of graphic facilitation, which I really, really enjoyed. And I could see myself doing that for a long time, kind of like what Edie said. I was also on the road a lot. And one day she said to me, as she was in her coach training, this field really sounds a lot like you. You should look into it. And I decided to, and I started some coach training, and I found actually this really is a lot like me. I enjoy working with individuals. I enjoy working with people who have been either identified by others as a potential leader or themselves have a desire to grow and develop as a leader or personally in their life outside of work. And so I did my initial coach training. I joined ICF Tennessee. I made lots of friends and connections through the chapter, really enjoyed being around other coaches, participated in committees, all the while working with clients, often in pro bono engagements. At the time, I was teaching an introduction to experiential learning program at American University for their Masters of OD students. And after a period of time, I started doing coaching with those students. And then I went to Ingram about 12 years ago and have been doing internal coaching with clients there also. So I have just enjoyed not only delivering coaching, but continuing to develop my own skills as a coach. Last year, I finished a certification program through presence-based coaching, and that added a whole new aspect, the somatic work, into the work that I do with my clients and that I do personally. And then finally, years later, Mildred, I could relate. I finally got my credentials. I've been celebrating ever since December. Even sometimes I have to just wear my pin at home because I'm excited. So wonderful thing. So now I love the field and I'm excited about ICF Tennessee. I was asked by Joanna Williams to be the president-elect in 2020, and last year served as president. This year, immediate past president. So I'm thrilled. I'm just excited watching the chapter grow and change and new coaches joining the chapter. And yeah, that's my journey.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about wearing the PCC pin at home. That's kind of a fun thing to do.
Oh, fancy. It's nice.
It's quite fancy. Yeah. Congratulations. It's no small journey to get your credentials. So congratulations to you.
Thank
and
you.
Anna, how about you? Tell us about your journey.
Thanks so much, Brenda. My road was a bit circuitous. I started out in insurance underwriting for a major organization, and I began to think there's more. There's something that fits me. I did that for 10 years and worked in corporate areas of diversity and inclusion at the time on the task force. And I just began to be drawn to something very different. And so I wouldn't advise this, but I did quit my day job. And in 1997, I started the Total You Image Consulting. And I began to work with clients and organizations on image building, image management. And at the time, I was called in by clients to help them determine what business casual was. And so I really did a lot of coaching, executive coaching, and work organizationally around image management. And then I began to coach their employees and started working with individuals on life coaching. And I began to talk about more image management and so forth, and really combining the two, and began to do more image consulting work, personal shopping and wardrobe consulting with television personalities and artists, and traveled doing that work. And so that became a little bit tiring over the years. And then I began to coach those clients individually, and they began to focus less on the outside and more on the inside. And so that really began my work. And so about 4 years ago, I decided to spin off the image consulting and the outer work that I was doing to hone in on the inner work, the life coaching, life transitions especially. And so at the behest of Pat White, also my mentor, I joined the ICF Tennessee chapter, and then Patricia Leonard immediately said, the only way to get involved is to get on a committee. So it seems like day one, I got pulled into membership, and I just haven't been able to leave until now. I'm taking a break, serving a board position for the past 4 years in membership. So that has been so exciting. I have met so many amazing coaches, so many wonderful coaches, and the work that I do now, even being more specific, and Edie Nash being another of my mentors, is to hone in on a particular niche, and that became liminal space coaching. And everybody has a human story. Everybody is going through some kind of transition, whether it be marriage, divorce, job transition, no matter what the loss of a spouse, as I have been through that journey recently. And so the liminal space is a threshold. It's a place where we find ourselves in betwixt and in between. And this group, this cadre of coaches that I have been surrounded by is really not only a network, but it's also like a family. And so we bond together as coaches in a common and a shared purpose to help people along their journey, whether it's executive or personal or life or wellness, no matter what discipline it is, we get to be the guiding light for people. And so I too, last year, I remember Karen and I had this conversation, kind of a fork in the road about credentialing. So I received my ACC and moving on toward my next credential probably in the next year or so. So I have so enjoyed being a part of this family, and now being having big shoes to fill with our past presidents. I am excited. I have enjoyed just thus far watching all of our past presidents and what they're doing and learning and gleaning from Brenda, such that I can take the helm next year. And I humbly have accepted that position. So that's my journey.
Well, we are so grateful that you have done that. Thank you. And I think everybody can see it does take a lot of courage sometimes to step into a coaching profession, to step into it. There's a lot of work that's done. There's a lot of rigorous training that there is to in order to get to that credentialed level and to operate at the levels that these ladies operate. And so congratulations to all of you. One thing that we heard from all of them is this reference to Pat White. And so I would be remiss if I didn't say and clarify who Pat White is. Pat White is actually the founding member of this chapter. She started with a small group of coaches just meeting in the basement of various churches, wherever they could find a place to meet. Eventually it turns into Tennessee Coaching Alliance. And then one day she's met with Thomas Leonard from ICF Global, and it takes its place as being an ICF chapter, a formal chapter. Today, Tennessee has an ICF charter chapter, which means it has membership large enough to receive that distinction as well. All of that came at the helm of these ladies' leadership in providing coaches a place to network, to share, to grow and learn. And so kudos to all of you for doing that. So Mildred, I'd like to ask you if you could think all the way back to, let's see, 2014. What is it about the time when you were president, or the changes that the chapter was going through then, that you're most proud of? One of the accomplishments, let's say, of your time as president?
It was a great time. Those days were so good. We had established coaching in the community with Monroe Harding, where our coaches went out and on a volunteer basis coached the staff at Monroe Harding. We also had morning forum discussions, but the thing that stands out the most is that there was a bill before the Tennessee State Legislature that would have changed the credentialing and the qualifications and regulations for coaching. The bill was actually developed by the Tennessee Psychological Association to establish scope of services for them, but somehow coaches got included in the bill. That meant that we would have to become licensed social workers or have a master's in either psychology or social work. Additionally, the bill would allow psychologists to become professional coaches without ever taking any classes in coaching, not any specific coach training, I should say. We were made aware of that bill one Saturday morning, and by the end of the day, we had a game plan for how we would handle the situation. We agreed that we did not want our profession to be regulated by the state. So we developed a template so that each member could send emails to their legislative representatives, or either to make phone calls, and we had a template for the calls too. By the next business day, Dan Hale and Mark Capolino had plans to go to lobby for us at the state capitol, and they actually ended up meeting with the people who were presenting the bill on the floor. And it was about to go to the floor in a matter of days, so we had to move quickly. But before the bill went to the floor, we had made an impact, and the bill was actually amended to exclude coaches so that we could remain self-regulated. And I think that was an exciting time for us, but it wasn't something that I did as president, but it was an effort by the whole chapter. Everybody reached out and said, okay, this is what I can do, and we did it.
Oh, Mildred, that impact stays with the chapter today. And so thank you for having the leadership and being able to harness the people to sort of step in front of that tremendous impact on the coaching industry. I think not only in the state of Tennessee, but I think it reaches across the United States. So that work that you did during your time still resonates with us. We still have a legislative committee, and we still advocate on behalf of coaches with state government. So thank you for that.
That's great.
Edie, how about you? 2013, what was happening in 13?
That's an easy one for me. In 2013, TCA, the Tennessee Coaches Alliance, was granted ICF chapter status, and we became ICF Tennessee. That was really an exciting time. That meant that we had the authority to organize and operate as an ICF chapter, and that as an ICF chapter, we also had to agree to operate in a manner that was established by ICF. They had to approve our articles of incorporation and our bylaws. There were things that we had to do to be branded as ICF chapter. There were a lot of benefits that came to us as a result of that. First of all, the branding and being able to use marketing materials that are provided by ICF for our own coaching businesses. I was able to attend a leadership program for new chapter presidents, and I was coached by a past chapter president. There was the ICF peer coaching program, where a member of ICF could partner with another ICF coach, and they would coach one another. We were able to participate in the global and regional trainings and conferences and events that ICF provides. As you know, when we have programs in our chapter, we are able to grant CCEUs, coaching continuing education units, to our members. For members who are credentialed, they're required to earn a certain number of CCEUs a year, and this is how they gain those units. We have access to the huge store of ICF research that's going on continuously. And the chapter receives a small portion of the global membership dues that are generated by our chapter members. So when we became an ICF chapter, it was a win for everybody. It was a win for ICF because they added another chapter. It was a win for us and our chapter and our members in lots of different ways. So without a doubt, that was but what I have to say is this didn't happen just in 2013. We spent years, we spent years ahead of time. I'm hearing an echo. Does anybody else hear it, or is it just me?
A little bit, yeah.
This was the work of previous presidents and the work that was started with Pat White. We were working toward being able to become a charter chapter. And in 2013, we were actually able to accomplish that.
Well, thank goodness. That is quite an accomplishment, and kudos to you for seeing it through all those years. The one thing that really resonates that I've heard from all of you so far is coaches have coaches, And it's in having our coaches that we often build that network that makes things happen. So I heard that again with Edie, that being a part of ICF Global allowed her to be coached by another coach. That's really fantastic. So I've had the luxury of serving as the incoming president under Karen Nash. Under her leadership, a lot of things happened, but one of the things that I'm most proud of is that we are here today in this live platform talking about diversity, inclusion, and belonging. So Karen, talk to us a little bit about what you feel some of your greatest accomplishments have been in the last year, and they've been many.
Yeah, we had quite a year. We started last year knowing that the pandemic was a reality. We had spent the previous year, the majority of it, meeting virtually. And I think the first thing that I was so proud of was that I was able to convene an amazing board. We had such good people that were willing to do whatever it took to make the year successful. We had a diverse board in any number of different ways you could slice it, from race and gender all the way to geography. Because one of the things that was really important to me was that as we had the challenge and opportunity of being virtual, that we would be able to really try to reach more coaches across the state of Tennessee. We were a Tennessee chapter, and there were some members in East Tennessee. There were some people who were coaches that would attend our meeting when we were face-to-face from other parts of the state, but we were going to have a concerted effort to attract and support members across the state. And that started with having a board that represented other parts of the state. So that was really exciting. And our membership did grow, even as we learned from other chapters that there were some chapters that were really struggling trying to maintain membership. We actually had growth, and in strategic pockets across the state, and even some people from outside the state of Tennessee that chose to join the chapter. We had phenomenal speakers, from a speaker from the Institute of Coaching to our new neighbor, Marshall Goldsmith. We had workshops, and everything was delivered virtually, which was wonderful, even as it was a challenge to our culture, because having been a chapter where most of the members started in Nashville and resided in the Nashville metro area, not being able to see each other and hug each other in the lunch line was, it was difficult. It was kind of a challenge. And even as we made those shifts, we were and are continuing to learn, how do we build the relationships that started from Tennessee Coaches Alliance and grew in ICF Tennessee in the early days to having a similar feel for coaches and members who were here way back when, as well as new coaches. And so I was thrilled to watch, like, for instance, our membership committee, thanks to Anna and Gail Southwell, really focus on how do we welcome and greet and connect with people. So our connector program, which had already started, became even stronger, so that all new members were connected with an existing member to learn about the chapter and how to function. Our navigator program, where coaches could connect with other coaches to support particular skill development or questions that people had. So you're basically getting coached by another member. That was awesome. Our professional development was stellar with the programs and workshops. Marketing was just amazing, and not only our traditional marketing, but also our social media marketing, that was led by the woman who is responsible for us being able to be here today, Dr. Akina Finch, who just did a wonderful job, and Nicole, and our outreach really provided some inroads, not only our traditional pro bono coaching, but also that is in the community, but also making connections outside of our area to organizations that provide means for coaches to connect to other volunteer opportunities. And we started building those relationships. And so I'm excited, Brenda, as I'm watching in the current board, that those things are starting to bubble up and will come to fruition in this year and be even building more and more momentum as we move into honest year. So I'm sorry I couldn't come up with just one thing, because there was just so much exciting stuff going on.
So much. Yeah. And I think, just as Edie and Mildred mentioned, it's years of things that build up to the successes that we can sort of say, this happened during my year as president. But it's true of the state of Tennessee. It is a volunteer state, and some of the best volunteers are a part of our chapter. They're dedicated, and they do stick with it until they get something accomplished. And so congratulations for all those successes, Karen. You've really teed up for a great year this year in 2022. One of the ways that we are expanding on the diversity, inclusion, and belonging efforts of Karen's time is what we've been doing this month of February and celebrating Black voices in leadership in the chapter. And so if you haven't been following us on social media, do that. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and videos have been posted throughout the month of February celebrating those Black leaders that serve the board today. And they've given their perspective about what it means to belong, either to the chapter, to their particular coaching niche, or just in belonging in general, what that word means to them. So check out those videos. They're very inspiring, and you get to know each one of our directors just a little bit better. And so that really leads me into this next question around diversity. And I'd like to start with you, Edie, if you don't mind. Why do you think that it's so important for there to be diversity in coaching, in the coaching industry? You're on mute.
Sorry.
No problem.
I'd like to answer that question, but first, I just want to say thank you to you for your leadership in making this happen. I think the way that our chapter has celebrated Black History Month has been excellent, and thank you for your leadership in that.
You're welcome.
Why diversity, equity, inclusion, justice at ICF? The ICF vision statement says, it is our vision to make coaching an integral part of a thriving society, and I'm going to stop right there. If coaching is to become an integral part of a thriving society, and in my mind, a thriving society means everybody thrives, not just some people, then that means that we'll need to expand our coaching, the look of our coaches, the feel of our coaches, the culture of our coaches, in order to match those people in society who will be looking for coaches. I think that when I looked at the data from Global ICF, and there's really very little data, what they said was that in the US, of executive and life coaches, there were approximately 8% of coaches, of Black Americans who were coaches. We're about 13% of the population. But I think that it's not just African American members of society. It is any marginalized group, whatever that group may be and however they may be marginalized, whether we're talking about race or gender or disability or any other issue. I know that lots of people come to coaching, and for the support that they want from a coach, many people just feel more comfortable if they believe that their coach has experienced life in ways that are similar to theirs. I think you can understand me better if our cultures have some similarities. What I know is that in the work that I do in corporate, very rarely do I have an African American client, simply because of what leadership looks like in most of our organizations. But I know that now more and more African American leaders and executives are asking specifically for a coach that looks like them. And I think as coaches, we must be ready to not only invite people across our society to be coached and to show them how valuable coaching is, but we must also include people from that group, whatever that group is, and encourage some of them to become coaches for the benefits of others in their culture. So I love the fact that Global ICF has a huge initiative. There's lots going on. And I think, the first thing that we've got to do is collect data. We've not done that. I think in our chapter, I've always felt that this was a warm and welcoming chapter. And I've heard that from lots of people from all different kinds of backgrounds. But this is not something that we've ever been intentional about. I think it's happened because coaches tend to be warm, welcoming people. But I think perhaps now's the time for us to look at how can we be more intentional. And I think first that starts with collecting data, because we may be good, but even if we are, we're not quite sure why.
Yeah, that's so true. Thank you for that, Edie. Thank you very much. Anna, how about you? Why do you think diversity is important in the coaching industry today?
Thanks, Brenda. And I too want to applaud the efforts that we have made in making this opportunity available. And thank you, Brenda, and also Dr. Finch. I think this is an important time in our history. It's an important time that we are sending the message of inclusion across the board, and not only in our nation, in our city, in our communities, in our world. And I think that the coaching practice should mirror the importance and the necessity to send the message of inclusion. And we've heard the saying that it's diversity isn't being invited to the dance, but you get to choose the music when you are an inclusive organization. And I love that saying because it means that you're thinking about more than people around the table. It is time for us in the coaching industry to mirror opportunities where people have their voices heard. And diversity is very important for that voice to be heard in our industry. It's important for our chapter to be more known in the community as providing that opportunity for them to come and receive the guidance that is needed, especially in this time. And coaching to me is the answer to that. Much like you see a doctor for things that ail you physically, it's important that you have a coach to help you with specific matters in your executive leadership and in your career choices and your wellness choices. It's important that we're able to come alongside people. And so diversity is not only, as was spoken, race and gender, but demographics, a lot orientation. It's a lot of areas in which we can have a voice. And I think that we have done such a great job to be more mindful of even our veterans, which we celebrated in November, and spotlighted our veteran coaches to recognize that that's a particular niche where coaching is needed. And so as we identify more diverse opportunities within our coaching community, it will only mirror the things that are the issues rather that are taking place in our city and in our communities. And I think it's important that as Edie so well said, that we are represented in the communities, and that more people know that our coaching discipline it represents the diverse base of people that we are in our city. We only represent African African Americans and minorities, 17% in the state. And so while that's not a huge number, it is important that we are mindful of the diverse issues that take place and that we are there to adequately respond.
Brenda, can I respond to this also?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Anna. Please do, Karen. And just a reminder to those that are watching, we're going to be putting up the comments from the chat. Dr. Finch is going to be displaying those. And if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat and we can ask them of the panelists soon. Thanks. Please, Karen, diversity.
Yeah, listening to Anna, one of the things that came to mind for me is I think about myself when I've been a client. Well, I'm a client now, but my early awareness of coaching, I was being coached. And when I think about the importance of that relationship, how it felt to have someone just on my side to help me think and help me get clear about what was important to me and help me find my own solutions and create a plan and encourage me and support me around accountability and challenge me and celebrate me. Those things were so important. And I want everyone to have that access. There should be nobody that wants to have someone focus on their development that doesn't have someone like a coach in their corner. On the flip side, I think about the satisfaction I get from delivering coaching and working with some of the most interesting, exciting, inspiring people. I want other people to know that this is a thriving profession and that it's not accidental, that there are specific skills and competencies to be developed that will help a coach support a client in really powerful ways. And so that to me is fundamental and why I think it's important that there be a diverse pool of coaches and clients and that the skills and things that are important to me and people who may identify like me be understood by people who are not like me. So I've had many coaches who were not Black, who were very strong coaches and were good for me. And part of that was their level of awareness about things that were important to me. So I think that it's just an opportunity for every category that gets impacted by coaching to have an opportunity to grow and develop.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Karen. You know, it is one of the core competencies that is built into the system in which we as coaches who are credentialed operate in. It's that as a coach, being understanding that the culture and the experiences that our clients have may not be ours, and to be open and receptive to be able to coach them and have empathy and compassion for whatever their experiences are. So thank you very much for sharing that. That's great. Mildred, how about you? How do you see diversity being so important in the coaching industry?
I was trying to think of what hasn't been said.
There's lots of wisdom happening here.
Exactly. But what I think about is discrimination. We all discriminate every day. We pick and choose what we really want. And sometimes we like to think that people don't deliberately discriminate, but we do. So I'm calling on the person who's considering contracting a coach to think about the kind of person you need. Sometimes we eliminate people because they're not what we expect. You know, we're most comfortable with people who agree with us, who have similar backgrounds, who have attended educational institutions that we're familiar with. And so you get those people who have the same experiences that you've had, and they have the same perspective that you have, and you go to the same source to find that person. But I would like to encourage people to think outside the box, to ask other people to go somewhere else to choose your coach. to choose a coach who may ask you difficult questions, questions that you don't want to answer but need to be answered. Don't get someone who already knows your background, and they assume that they know all about you, so they don't ask the questions. But if you get somebody very different from you, they may ask questions because they just don't know, and they're trying to gain insight into how your issues, your problems, whatever you're trying to discover. How can we get there? So they're going to ask some very different questions. So you can get the same kind of person contracting for you that you always have, and you'll get the same old solutions, and your problems may remain unresolved. Or you can go out and get somebody very different, even somebody that may make you just a little bit uncomfortable, somebody who doesn't see the world the way you see it, that don't exist in the universe that you exist in, and they'll bring something entirely different to the table.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. That is beautiful. Thank you for that. Yeah. So when we think about what Mildred just shared with us about go out and stretch a little bit, get outside of your comfort zone, think about coaches that have different experiences than you do, to bring that diversity into the coaching space. If you were advising a new coach today, what skill or competency do you think would help a coach to be more diverse? And I want to put some context around this question. In a recent workshop that we had at the chapter, Derek Young challenged us to take a look at our coaching clients and to say, as we're thinking about diversity and inclusion and belonging, take a look at your client base. Are they all the same as you, or do you have diversity in your clients? And I think that comes from not only organizations stretching to get outside of their box, but also the coach to stretch and get outside of their box. So this question is about the skills that coaches might need in order to really serve more diverse clients. So Karen, could I start with you, please, and see what skills or competencies do you think are most important in this area?
There are a few that come up for me. One is just starting with curiosity. When I look at where I tend to always go, what else am I curious about people or groups of people, and can I choose to be open and inquire and seek to learn? Sometimes I've been in conversations where people have said, I don't know much about a certain group and I feel uncomfortable and I don't know how to find out. But I know if I were trying to find information about an industry that I'd not worked in, I would probably start by Googling it. So I think there are some ways, just really practical, even traditional ways of starting to gather some answers to my questions, and then also to think about my network. Who do I know? That's kind of my default. Who do I know that can help me learn and fill in some of the places where I have gaps in knowledge or gaps in awareness? Who do I know that I can trust, that I can share, this is my concern, or this is what I was thinking, how does that fly? So that I can develop some well, you said it to begin with, some courage to step out and try some new things. Because I think sometimes what holds me back and what I see in other people is just the fear. I don't want to mess up. I don't want to say the wrong thing and have somebody think that I'm trying to be offensive. And so as a result of the concerns, the curiosity and willingness to step out just contracts. And so that helps me and others, I think, stay in a certain mold. So curiosity, like a deep curiosity enough that I'm willing to make a mistake and find support in my learning so that I can stretch.
Yeah, thank you for that. Anna, what do you think? If you were advising a new coach, what do you think the skills or competencies might be?
I think that in addition to what Karen said, which was really great, there has to be that level of intentionality. A lot of times we are focused on our group and we say, okay, maybe I've gained that one client and maybe that's sufficient. But we have to be intentional about being consistent in identifying those opportunities. And so once we've become curious, once we deepen that awareness, then how do we set up a system to follow through with that to be sure that we're reaching those diverse groups? And then that awareness and understanding of the need based on not so much treating them the way you want to be treated, but treating them the way you know that they want to be treated and they want to be coached. And that takes a deeper level of understanding of who they are and their needs that are specific to those diverse groups. So you don't you obviously don't want to coach from your own perspective. It's seeking to understand. And so I think those kinds of skills, listening well to the things that they have to say, listening deeply, that's a basic coaching competency. But I think particularly with diverse groups, you have to listen from a different perspective in terms of identifying those needs that coaching client has. And I think that when you mentioned, Brenda, the teaching that or coaching rather that Derek Young provided on unconscious bias, many of us do have unconscious bias. And so I think that that deeper dive and understanding where those areas lie that could prevent us from being courageous, that could cause us to reduce those levels of fear, identifying them, naming them will help us be more courageous in moving forward in identifying, securing more diverse clients.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Derek reminded us that we fear the things that we don't understand, or we fear the things we just don't know, which was great advice. Mildred, how about you? Any particular competency in coaching that sort of stands out as one a coach really needs in order to serve a diverse client base?
Yes, trust and safety. I think that your client has to trust you. They have and to have that trust to make them feel safe, they have to perceive that you have their best interests at heart. So you have to be transparent. If it's something that you don't know, even if it's a stupid question, I think people would rather that you ask the question and clear it up and don't make any assumptions. You know, sometimes when we have stereotypical thinking, we make assumptions, and we all know the stereotypes have to go out the window. So in order for us to be transparent, we just have to ask, why do you do this? What do you think about this? And coaches are so good at asking questions, but we have to be transparent in our questions, not try to hide our ignorance, not try to pretend that we're something that we're not, but just say, I need to understand this. I think we have to have respect for the client's identity and who they are. And again, if you're not clear on that, just ask questions to try to understand, because you have to come from a level of understanding I think that the client will ask you questions and you have to ask them questions to establish this trust.
Yes. Thank you for that, Mildred. Yes. Edie, there's been so much wisdom shared with these groups of leaders. Do you have any parting ideas for us here as we sort of wrap up this idea of what competency coaches need for a diverse client base?
I think all of the skills and competencies that have been mentioned before are really important. I agree with them. And I think the one that I might add would be approaching a client with empathy, really empathizing, really wanting to understand where that client is coming from. You don't have to have experienced everything your client has experienced in order to be empathetic. I think it's more of a mindset than a skill, that I come to you recognizing that there are many things about you that are absolutely perfect, and I want to know about those things. And what about the things that maybe aren't so perfect, that aren't working for you? But I have to be able to understand, you know, who you really are and what you're really feeling. And I think empathy is crucial, particularly when we're coaching people whose cultures and backgrounds may be very different from ours.
Yes. Thank you for that, Edie. Well, we are just about out of time. We only have about 6 minutes left with our audience. So I just have one last question. If there's any final piece of advice that any of you would like to share, I'll just leave it all open for you to just jump in as you would. But any final pieces of advice as we can hopefully continue this conversation about creating a culture within ICF Tennessee that is one of belonging and inclusion and diversity. Any final thoughts that any of you would like to share?
I've already said this, but I'd like to stress it, that I think we can be more intentional in our desire to approach diversity and equity and inclusion. And for me, that always starts with, what do the data say? How do we get the information that we need to have in order to decide what we need to do?
Yeah. We don't have a formal collection of data for ICF Tennessee. We did an informal survey as we were entering into the month of February, and I can report an unofficial percentage of 14% of the coaches in the chapter are Black. That's an informal number written in pencil, subject to change after deep analysis. Let me just say that, because we haven't done a good job of collecting that information. And you're right, and I take your point. So thank you, Edie, for that. Anyone else?
I think Anna's early comment that you got from Pat Leonard is the thing that makes the biggest difference to me, that obviously I wouldn't have served as president if I didn't love the chapter. I love the chapter. And part of it is because there were people who were working and having fun together. And so joining in with them in serving the chapter was how I came to feel a sense of belonging, because the folks were great and they were happy to see somebody else come to volunteer. And so I would encourage anybody who's a new member or considering being a member to dive right into the middle of the boat. And if you can't find a committee that you want to work on, call me, because I need some volunteers. Putting in a plug for International Coaching Week. And it's a great way just to meet people and to find a sense of belonging.
Yeah, it's great. Any other final thoughts?
Well, I just echo
go ahead,
everything that you all have said. I truly stand on the shoulders of so many giants here as I am preparing for next year. And I just want to say thank you for your leadership, and just encourage those members, those who are looking to join. These are the types of leaders that we have that are forward thinking, that have the insight and foresight to lead this chapter into great heights and deeper depths. And I'm excited about your leadership, Brenda, and I thank you so much for all that you're doing to advance DEI and the opportunities. And I just encourage each coach to hear what we've said and be encouraged in your coaching disciplines. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yes, you're very welcome. Great. Well, in our final moments, I would like to thank all of you for being here and being a part of this panel. If I could ask one quick thing, if Dr. Finch could please turn on her camera if she's still available. And there she is. Yeah. So Dr. Finch, on behalf of everyone at ICF Tennessee, we want to thank you for your expertise in technology and for your willingness to always serve the chapter so that we can bring events like this to fruition. We could not have done this today without you, and I will be eternally grateful to you for always being available to help support anything that we want to do. So applause to you, Dr. Finch. Thank you so very much. You are a Black leader in our chapter. You have been for a long time, and we so appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's always my pleasure.
Right. Great. Thank you for everything. So those who are listening, thank you so much for your beautiful comments. They were inspiring to read, and I'm grateful for that. We hope that you found this discussion useful, and we look forward to continuing this dialogue in the future. So with that, we're right at the top of the hour. We're right on cue. Thank you, everyone, for being with us, and we hope to see you at an ICF Tennessee event soon. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.